welcome Dana Gonzales. First of all, let's give him a round of applause, virtual applause, for joining us. It's so wonderful to have him here today on this Friday. And the rest of the team I want to quickly introduce to you from ZEISS is Tony Wisniewski, Senior Marketing Manager for Cinema and Photo. Stephen Balsley's here. He's a technical sales representative based in Los Angeles. Katia del Rosario is marketing specialist based in Los Angeles, and I'm based in Los Angeles as well. We have an office in Sherman Oaks. If you're ever here or visiting, when the pandemic is over, you're going to be able to set up some time to come in and get a personal demonstration. But let's get right to it. Dana, how you doing today? So nice to see you.
I'm doing great, and I'm at home for it's rare. I'm actually at home and talking to people. And most any kind of interview I do or whatever, I'm always in a hotel room or in another country or another state, and so it's pretty amazing. And like we were talking earlier, this whole interaction on Zoom and all that has been amazing. Watching all these other people I'm fans with, photographers, DPs, directors. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's so wonderful for you to spend some time with us today because, being at home, you get to stream content, and you have really, really great content that's available right now online. We're going to talk about two of those shows. First, let's talk about how you got into this, because you transitioned from being a first AC for many years into cinematography, right? And first of all, let me just put a nice photograph of you up here so everyone can see a headshot of Dana. And that's what Dana looks like with the suit on. So Dana, tell us, what was the transition like from going from first AC to cinematographer?
Basically, I was mostly a focus puller. I was a second assistant for a very short time, and then I became a focus puller. And in all film, I never did digital my entire assisting career, and which I'm reminded about all the time that I don't know I don't know how hard it is right now, but I had my own hardships with, I never used I used a pan of tape on one job. The Cine tape came out at the very end. So it really wasn't available. And but I loved being an assistant, and I worked with some really great cinematographers, and I learned so much, and I love the gear. And if any one thing that happened when I stopped being an assistant was that I stopped kind of interacting with the gear the same way. When you prep cameras, like that was the place that that was the place where you basically found out a lot about gear. You'd be prepping someone next to you and have the new lenses or the new camera or whatever. I mean, it happens today as well. And you would see it, and then maybe you could tell that cinematographer about it. It was just a great place, and I loved every bit of it. And so when I wanted to start shooting, it was a process. And I started. In those days it was hard to build a reel. They were all on film, and you had to. It cost me a lot of money, and favors and telecine and editing, and it's like there was no Final Cut, there was no digital cameras, or none of that. So I had a 16, I had a Bolex, I had a Bol U, I had it was painful, and it cost me probably about $100 grand of my own money. Made tons of mistakes, but I kept shooting, and then I started in features as an assistant, and I did mostly features, but I did a lot of commercials. And I know that we're going to talk about Paul Cameron. And so basically what happened is I met Paul on a movie called Blue Chips, and I referred to him, and then we just kind of hit it off, and I became his assistant for about 10 years probably. And I was very fortunate where I got to work with a very few cameramen, like exclusively. I just kind of worked out that way, and I didn't work with a bunch of people at one time. I normally would just work with one for a period, and just the way things go, I moved on or whatever. And so Paul did commercials, and I had never done commercials before. And so And it was really the heyday of commercials, you know, and just like the storytelling was incredible, and the budgets were massive. And, you know, we used to do these 6-week campaigns, and so I really was like attracted to that. And I thought I was going to try to start shooting features earlier. And then but I was so attracted to the commercials and what I didn't know about them and what was happening at that time, that I said, you know, I'm going to stay in this for a while. I ended up actually staying a lot longer than I thought, but because I was working with Paul, and he's incredibly talented and just such a great person. And we traveled the world. And so at the end of that, we were, you know, trying to basically find somebody to replace me to work with him, because I literally was his assistant. That's all I did. I just did his jobs. You know, he worked so much that I was like a full-time person. And so it took a while. It took a couple of years to like try to find somebody, and we didn't really find a replacement. And Joe Martinez, who was my second at the time, ended up replacing me, who's still his assistant today. And I had to leave, and I left to become a DP, and it was like, you know, I didn't leave because I didn't like him. I didn't leave because I didn't like the job. I loved being an assistant, but it was like I worked really hard at trying to become a DP, and I had in my heart that I had to do this. Something unfortunate happened that when I finally kind of cold turkeyed off assisting, and I started, I just literally shot my first kind of beauty commercial, like a hair spot, and 9/11 hit the next day. I was really I telecined the footage, and I remember calling my wife and saying, I think I finally broke through. I finally like did that work that would get me noticed, you know. And 9/11 was the next morning. And that, you know, any newer cinematographer was just like literally floored at that moment, right? for a while. And you know, I ended up helping my uncle build a house for the next year and a half, and I didn't take any assistant jobs. I got offered Man on Fire with Tony Scott and Paul. I got offered a bunch of other things, and I just turned it down. And because I was committed to making that jump. And if I would have taken those jobs, and I wouldn't be DP today. So it was an incredible year and a half of discovery and finding myself. And, you know, like, because I think I was trying to maybe be something else that, you know, I wasn't at the time. And I kind of really went back to what I think, you know, the aesthetics that I liked, the kind of why I wanted to shoot, and kind of like the artistic approach. So that year and a half was really about starving and finding myself. You know, I was fortunate that I bought a rental house, and I had a house, and I unfortunately sell like my first house that I loved dearly just to build my first DVD reel. I mean, DVD reels came out, and, you know, it was like, before that was 3/4. And for me to stay relevant, I needed to make this DVD reel, which costed at the time, you know, $4,000, because you couldn't make them at home. Really, you had to work with somebody. And so, you know, that was another sacrifice, and all incredible sacrifices I needed to do.
Yeah, no, but you know, that's the thing. You said something really important about making that choice. And I think for a lot of cinematographers, there was that point where they're like, all right, well, I could take this other stuff, you know, like a lot of people came from other avenues as well. They weren't all necessarily assistant camera. Some of them were camera ops, or they were editors, or doing other stuff on the side, but they had to consciously make that decision and say, okay, well, I'm going to stop doing this and only concentrate on that. And it does take a sacrifice. And yours was quite large, with the, you know, $100,000 reel. That makes sense. Back then, that's exactly how much it would have cost. It would have cost you $5 to $10 grand just to make DVDs to send out to people, because that process is ridiculous.
Every 3/4 tape in those days was like $25 or something. And you know,
and then mailing
when I got my first agent, you know, you would basically drop off tapes, right? And they would send them out, and then they'd call you and say, we need more, and you'd be charged for shipping.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you literally would get a bill. Here's which when you're a new DP and you have a new agent and they give you a bill for happy, you're like, okay, whatever. I don't care what it costs because that means you're sending out my reel.
Yeah.
Where today people would be like, what? I'm not going to pay for that.
I'll email
But,
it to you.
yeah. Where today we don't really, I mean, I guess we deal with reels a little bit. I don't much, but today obviously you can go online and you could just go to this link and see people's work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a different world. And every time I shot something, it meant a lot. I needed to do something with every time I rolled that camera. Something had to happen. Some magic had to happen. And that piece of work, whatever it was, a spec commercial or a short film or whatever it was, it had to carry me to the next job, and it had to do something. And so, I was always swinging for the fence. I mean, I still have that in me. I guarantee you, I wish I didn't maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
Thing where I'm just like, I'm swinging, man. I'm swinging, and that's it's in everything I do. And it's like I said, I wish sometimes I could turn it off.
And then what about in terms of the relationships that you mentioned Paul, of course, but I'm sure there were many other mentors and other people you work with. Does that relationship come into handy later on when you're a cinematographer? Now you're competing, right, for some of the same work.
I don't think I'm competing. I mean, Paul is like, he's so talented and has his style that, and I mentioned it earlier, like when I stopped assisting for Paul and I just concentrated on shooting, I was trying to be like Paul. I was trying to do what Paul did because he was so good. I spent a lot of years just like, literally right next to him, ordering gear, in his process, and I mean, this is the guy that every job came with a new idea, and I know he's the same way today. And I was trying to kind of emulate him. And the problem is that we're all unique in a way. I mean, I don't say that like we're all special, but we all have our strengths and our quirks or whatever that make us who we are. And I had to go back and really find myself because I was trying to do something that I wasn't, and I was derailing me. It really was hurting me because I felt like it was hurting me for what I was trying to do. And basically what happened was I had a decent commercial career, but I was really much more narrative work. My work was always much more narrative, darker. I was just always interested in the narrative perspective. So, and commercials are commerce.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a time when there was some great storytelling going on, and it was more narrative, and that was like the heyday of me where I worked with Paul. But
I don't think
my
that
work
exists
was
anymore.
yeah, no, it doesn't work. So my work was always more narrative, which always hurt me commercially.
Yeah.
I just didn't fit into that. So, and then people responded to there's always people who were responding to my work, my work in a narrative sense, because like that was why it wasn't hard for me to get my very first, and it wasn't that hard to get my first TV gig, my first pilot, which was, I mean, it was hard. Don't get me, but it was like my work was more, where I think even commercial people that are incredibly gifted commercial shooters, their work is so polished and everything that maybe that, narratively when a director sees their work, maybe they're like, well, doesn't have that component that they're looking for, which, it's just, so but it helped me narratively, which is ultimately, that's where I really live. And I love stories, and I love, just narrative work, of it, the character arcs of it.
Yeah, let's jump into narrative work. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and play silently in the background a trailer for Legion, and then we could jump into Legion and talk about that show. So Legion, this was a season 3, and then the final season actually of the show, right? Because they didn't continue it on anymore. But this is a Marvel property. Legion is based off of a comic book series. it's surrealistic, it's comic booky in a sense, in a lot of ways. So how did you feel about this? Like, you got to play, right? You got to, you know, do exactly what you were saying, do a narrative, talk about characters, but now you got like this palette, which is just crazy to play with.
Yeah, you know, when we did, I mean, we got to season 3, but you know, I did. At this point, I had done 6. This would have been my 7th season of television with Noah Hawley, the showrunner.
Got it.
So, you know, Noah is a rare individual who has a strong visual sense in his writing and his storytelling and his thirst for how scenes are constructed and how the episodes will work. So I'm very fortunate that I can almost do anything. And, you know, I mean, you know, I talk about that a lot. You know, it's like, so, I mean, I do everything with a calculated thought, but I literally can do anything and try anything. And you know, a show like Legion deals with, you know, it's not reality. Sometimes it goes into a more reality based storyline. There's flashbacks and things like that, just the way the story's told. And but you know, it's told from the perspective of an unreliable narrator, and so you're kind of constantly screwing with the audience a bit, and then you're in these situations like, you know, that you see in a lot of this trailer that just aren't real situations. So you're like, okay, I want to make this into what I think is this world looks like. So, you know, it's world building. I never, you know, I'm not really I'm not really a Marvel guy. I don't really particularly watch all those shows, those movies. And I've never been a comic book fan. And I certainly didn't watch X-Men or anything like that, trying to because Legion is a X-Men character, right? And one of the mutants. But we didn't, no, it was, no, Holly never said, you know, this needs to be like, you know, there's X-Men or you know, anybody, anything. It was just kind of its own world. So I didn't need to watch anything. But with that, working with him on Legion and Fargo is like literally, you know, constantly pushing the boundaries. Legion, like Fargo, is like every season was different. So every season had new sets. So every we were, you know, our episode 1 was like a pilot. It was always like a pilot. We're building new sets. It's a new world. They were always going like the end of a season. They were leaving that world and going to the new world. The new world,
gotcha,
was the next season. So always world building, which, you know, that's exciting to me. That's so like instead of seasons on a television show where you open up at the courthouse or the police precinct or whatever. It wasn't any of that, you know. And you know, and then my approach towards sets are that, you know, I always try to make them look different. I don't particularly light them really, so I don't have grid of lights. I always see ceilings. I'm always asking for ceilings in sets because we're using wider lenses and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no turn on lighting situation number 4, you know. You know, I mean, they do that when you do you know, like, I was an assistant on NYPD Blue. I was a focus puller for you know, and they definitely had those, like they were in the precinct and they would like turn on the lights that like they always did. It was day, you know, it was a day interior, turn on the lights. Yeah. We didn't do that. I don't do that. So you know, that makes it much more of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. We have actually a question already for Legion, so I think we're gonna go to Ashley Barron to let Ashley ask a question. Ashley's a cinematographer herself and has a question about lighting. Ashley, go right ahead.
Okay, let me set myself up. Starting video. G'day, how you going?
Hi.
Hiya. Question is if there's anything that you learned or tried to do for the first time, learned something new or tried to do for the first time, lighting wise on Legion.
God, I mean, I guess maybe the question is like, what did you do that you already did? I mean, everything was pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Was
Look, the technology's changed from season 1 to season 3, right?
yeah.
We used a lot of LED lighting. So I can tell you that, like season 1, the sky panel had just kind of landed. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they were $500 a week to rent then. They were 100 and they're now you get for 125 a week or something. I had 400 of them by the end of the
Right.
show. I mean, I just kept they couldn't. And because of that technology, I was able to do. We had this clockwork set, and I had at that time I had the LED Lecos were brand new. Company to buy $280,000 worth of them, and we to them. Those lit this whole center section. Everything else had tape or sky panels, and I was able to literally, when Noah Hawley, who was directing the came in and like, can we make this whole thing red and flash and things? And I'm like, yeah, I can. But that wasn't really possible even 6 months prior, maybe, because you need gel. Okay, yeah, I can do that, but I have to gel all these lights. Well, I'm doing lighting cues. I had this massive set, and I was able to basically do what color he wanted, any cue he wanted to tell the story, emotionally or the action. So that was new. Even the tape, going from regular LED tape to pixel tape. So season 3, Allegiant is like a massive amount of pixel tape that we had. I think the first season we had, I don't know, universes or something of channels. The last season, I have the statistic here. It's astronomical. Like the amount, every pixel is a channel. I don't know. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's staggering, and it's like multiplied by 100 or something. So that technology change, and that again allowed me to try something that I'd never tried before, because I could do it in a small amount of time. I like to make judgment lighting calls after rehearsals at the last minute. I mean, I get a global thing happening for sure, like we all do, but I like to preserve what I do into the last minute, and maybe turning on several lights or turning off every light. And the LED technology and how it evolved even in those 3 seasons just allowed me more and more. The last season I did a lot of pixel mapping. So, pixel mapping on 360s, on S360s. 360s didn't exist season 1 and 2. And then boom, they came online on 3. And then I was able to pixel map, and that opened up a whole world of kind of like interactive light and video, like running video imagery through the board, and then matching that and corresponding to imagery. And so like all those things change constantly. So it's like the story forced you to do that. So I mean, I would say that Polly Morgan and I, who did both those seasons, all those season 2 and 3, were constantly being challenged like that, and using the technology to in new ways. So I think that kind of answers your question.
Thank you, Ashley, for that question. Wonderful. Dana, before we continue, I just want to remind everybody, click on the chat button and put your questions in the chat if you have any questions for Dana while we're talking about these shows, so that we can choose you like we just did with Ashley to feature you to ask the question. So Dana, can you touch upon the lenses that you use for Legion, season 3 specifically?
Yes. I guess season 1, okay, so the main lenses I used were ZEISS Supremes for season 3. I had not used those. I don't even know if they were available season 1 and 2, but I used Master Primes for 1 and 2. But I could also tell you that I think in both season 2 and 3, but season 3, we also probably collectively used over 60 lenses. Keslo Camera is my main kind of collaborator on all these visuals, and they, every time I have to tell a different story, a flashback or a time jump, or memories within memories, or there's all kinds of things that we have to do, and I always try to do that organically. So the Supremes kind of were our narrative thread, right? And then I use literally maybe even 75 lenses. Somebody here knows. I mean, somebody here from Keslo's on here probably knows the number. And again, it's a staggering number, but we use anamorphics. We used one-off lenses, Petzl. Okay. Again, just depending on what the story had to be told. So we use. And I'm very fortunate that we have producers and that understand that that's kind of a very important factor of telling a story. That we can't just do it with one set of lenses, and because we always needed like 3 sets of lenses, and then if I committed to using some special set of lenses, I'd like, can I get another set of lenses, because we would be doing splinter work, or, and. So, but the Supremes were for that year were and large format year too, because the LF had just kind of came online, and so I tested format lenses, and I just loved the way they looked. I thought they felt like the story I wanted to tell, and we didn't have the Mini that season. It wasn't built yet, so we only had the LF and
the full size LF. Yeah.
And I put that on a Ronin 2, and it was like 9 was on this Ronin 2, on with the black arm or with the wheels, on crane, on a dolly. We had to use that viewfinder because there's no large format viewfinder that exists. So that was like a prototype right there, and so that was but it was like the large format was such a great format for Legion. I mean, I'm personally going to shoot large format in anything I do, but especially the field of view, depth of field kind of relationship, where you can use a 50 was a 35 basically, and the 35 is what, a 24 or something like that, and that you're using this flatter depth of field playing wider field of view, so you didn't have the distortion, and we were already attracted to wider angle lenses, and so now it's like you can even get a more flattering shot closer, because I love a 29 spherical close-up. I love a 40 mil spherical close-up, but now we can even go wider, a wider field of view, a 17 mil wide kind of field of view on I don't know what that transponds to, a 29 or something, large format lens, and not have a face distort. So for a story like a story like Legion, like that was how you sell the set, and it's like the whole thing about, we had this incredible production design every season. Michael Wiley, it did season 1 and 2. Marco Nero did season 3, and we could photograph these sets, right, and see them. They built them so beautifully, and they were so expensive that sometimes when you don't have a great set, you use long lenses and just go for the shallow depth of field. Well, this was like, you want to see the sets, so the field of view was that thing.
Wider,
you still had the painterly fall off, but you really saw the set. So that was a huge attraction to large format. And large format, I think when it kind of came online, especially, I mean, Panavision was fortunate that they had all these large format lenses that
that worked from before. Yeah.
It's right that they were able to kind of retrofit and make work with these cameras. When you were a non-Panavision kind of house or whatever, it was a little more of a challenge because now the lenses were brand new and coming online, and and then we hadn't all worked with them, and so that's how I found this by doing testing, and I'm not sure what I tested them against, but I tested several. I start every season with almost any show by saying, going to Keslow, all these lenses, and I'll come down there and I'll just literally look at the lenses, and I'll look at them mechanically. I'll look at them with the set they come with. I'll look at the minimum focus. I'll look at I'll talk for hours with the lens techs about characteristics, and because that process eliminates a lot of them, because like, oh, I can't use this lens because of this, I can't use this lens because of that, I can't use this lens on this camera because of this,
right,
I can't do resolution, I can't do whatever it is. There's always something,
right,
and then that narrows you down to 3 at the time, right? I mean, it's getting better and better every day, but so then out of those 3, which one is going to be have the photographic component that's going to tell the story? So I do that on every single job. So if it was an anamorphic job, I do it with every anamorphic lens and look, and it's the same thing. So and it's exciting. Listen, I really master primes, regular spherical master primes are kind of my reference lens. Like anytime I do a test, I would test against that, because that's the lens that I felt like I understood the most. And like, it's just like any kind of, if you had reference music or like a reference turntable or stereo, and what an album that this is the album that I think sounds the best, and then everything can be gauged off that. The master prime are always my reference lens, and then I could tell, what the character is about the other lenses. So I felt like when I did the Supremes, that was kind of my new large format reference, because it reminded me of the master primes a little bit more, and it just became that, so now I might kind of go to large format lens in a lot of ways. I'll continue lenses and everything like that, but like I said, that the master primes became that sometimes I would default to for a job, because I end up going to the master prime because it was the right lens for me, and so right now that's the Supremes.
Very cool. We're going to jump into introducing the next show, Fargo, and I have the trailer over here as well, and I can also play that quietly in the background while we chat. But in this case, there was we had a change of lens. You were also doing the same camera system, which was Sony, and the Venice.
No, Sony.
Oh, sorry, Alexa LF. But
this was the Mini. The
LF Mini, right? So you did LF for LF for Legion season 3, and then shortly thereafter, the Mini became available, so that you were able to use Mini for Fargo season 4. And we'll start the trailer.
They just literally, I got the first 3 that Keslow were delivered. Again, my relationship with them is an evolving relationship of discussions about, when is this lens coming in, when is that coming in, when is it, it's just, and strategizing and I do a lot of strategizing with them, and it's very important. And so I think I got the first 3 that they had. And then you and I, when I saw you, I think it was the 100-year anniversary party at ASC.
That's right.
And you and I were talking, and I was telling you that I'm testing for Fargo. And you asked me about Supremes, and I said, yeah, for sure I'm testing. And I told you, it's a period in 1950s, and I'm gonna do some pretty radical look with it. And then you said, hey, would you be interested in testing these Radiance lenses? Or I don't even know if you knew the name then, but these new lenses that we really can't talk about. And I'm like, well, Yes and no. I'm very interested in, because you told me that about the character of them and how you develop them with Kessel camera. And but I said I need two sets. I
Can't shoot with one.
I can't do it with one because I know I'm going to get right away, and I'm going to need two sets. You said, well, let me see what I can do. I mean, I saw in your eyes you didn't have another set, but you were like, let me see what I can do. And I think by the next week, you had sent a first set to Chicago, and I was testing them, and yeah, I fell in love with them instantly, and let you know that I was, I desperately would like to use it. I needed another set. You made me sign an NDA. I couldn't tell anybody about them. Our lens box had some secret code on it that Chris Winterborn, my first assistant, put on there, and yeah, we were off and running. And it's somehow after we were shooting the first block, you announced to the world right before Camerage or something. You announced to the world that these lenses existed. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it was quite wonderful for you to try them out on Fargo, because I mean we're always looking for that proof from the cinematographers. And the interesting thing is, we develop the lenses with the flare characteristics, but I don't think that that's necessarily the thing that you like the most about them. I think you said something else that you liked about them even more, which was, I think, the skin tone.
No, I mean, I guess, when you guys told me when you developed them that you had asked Keslow Camera, like, what are the characteristics that all the cinematographers are coming in there are looking for? And right. You kind of took all that information, and you kind of with the coatings and the tuning of these lenses. And so, is there any one thing? For me, again, this was a 1950s. I was creating a Kodachrome look. I built this custom LUT that's radical. I have a pretty radical filter situation I'm doing, and so they had to all work together. It wasn't just like the lenses would make everything else work. Everything had to work together, and these lenses just had the treatment for this storytelling and this period. So like I can't say that the Radiance lenses are going to be what I'll use in my next project. I'm just, that's why I don't buy lenses. That would be bad for me, because I tend to change it up slightly every time. But the next one may be Supremes because of that, of how they perform versus the Radiance. But I felt like the Radiance for this period and this storytelling was perfect. And I know like there's some people who like, if they like K35s or whatever, exclusively, they're probably going to be attracted to Radiance more than maybe the Supremes a little bit more, but like I said, I don't want to just say these are the lenses I use. I want them to be the right, because you guys will have another set of lenses in time, and you're gonna, they're gonna have a different characteristic, and I'll look at those and for that particular project I'm gonna use.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's exactly why this relationship with the rental house is very, very important, like you mentioned a couple of times, because that relationship that the cinematographer has allows them to evolve and try different things and have 60 different lens types that you use for one television series in a season. I mean, that's the cool kind of stuff that you can do, when you have that relationship. We actually have a question from Mike Maduff. So if we can unmute Mike Maduff and let him ask his question about Fargo. He's got a really cool question about it.
Hey, what's up, Dana?
Hey, man.
My main question was, since you shot Fargo for television, was the feature film ever an influence on you, or was there ever any pressure to capture the film, or were you given creative freedom to light and capture a scene the way you saw fit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and I have to go back to season 1. Okay, so season 1 of Fargo, everybody said, don't do it. Like, there wasn't a person that was really like, people were really like, why would you want to screw with the Holy Grail, right? And so season 1 was shot with, I shot season 1 basically with 2 sets of lenses. I shot it with Cook S4s and Leica Sumo Luxes just came out. There's like a transition, I think in episode 7 later, where it ends on one shot of Gus, of Colin Hanks, and then open as a postman. And then now we're into a year later, and that was with ZEISS Sumo Luxes. So S4s were used for Fargo, the movie, and I could say that we kind of tried to honor the Cohen-esque lensing and what Roger Deakins did in season 1. Very important. One of our producers, our executive producer, John Cameron, had done 7. He had done Fargo. He's done 7 Coen Brothers films. So he was kind of like the barometer in a good way of that. So season 1 was really like honoring the film probably to its maximum. But it was also, every season kind of honored multiple films. So season 1 was like No Country, Fargo, and probably No Country and Fargo were probably season 1. Season 2 was like Serious Man, Fargo, and something else. So, but I could tell you that what happened was, season 1 definitely probably had a little bit more like we were really going to honor it. And then season 2 and 3, we kind of were like, okay, we earned the right to do a little bit more. And season 3, we had just finished season 1 of Legion. And a lot of things we kind of did with that and that technology and, the crane use and the bull use, all that didn't exist on when we did season 1. We kind of brought that over. So that storytelling changed. And then season 4 was like, we really talked about like, you know what? We're using large format. So that's going to change the way, we can't just naturally say we're going to use a 29 or a 32 or whatever. And so we started, I talked about using longer lenses specifically for the exteriors because of the period. And we basically, Noah Hawley and I had a discussion, and we was like, look, we earned the right. So season 4, let's just do what we think is right. And we definitely went longer and maximized the large format and I think helped the period and everything like that. So that was a great question because season 1 was a, I wouldn't say it was rigid in that sense, but it was more trying to honor it. And, and after we did season 1, the show had won the overall Emmy, the Golden Globe, the Peabody. We had it, but prior to that moment, everybody was just like, don't fuck this up, right? Don't mess this up. And we succeeded. So I think it after that, it got a little bit more open.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important aspect of, when you're working on shows is honoring something or, if it is an influence from a movie or comes from some other kind of content, you're always you have that kind of guideline in your head. Actually, we have a question from Keith Jeffries about a similar topic. This is about Hannah. So Keith, go right ahead and we'll unmute you and let you ask your question.
Okay, hi, good morning.
Hey,
he's flying. Look at him.
Dana, can you talk about the look of Hannah? It's a lot more naturalistic than Legion. And specifically, what were some of the story points that you found in the narrative, in the script, that influenced your decisions as a DP?
Yeah, well, that's another, it's another project where you're following the lead of a real, I love the movie Hannah.
The feature film, yeah.
Yeah, the feature film. And I was excited when I got the opportunity to shoot. Basically, I was being offered, I shot the first 2 episodes and I was reshooting the movie in a way because it was this very similar storytelling, expanded, but storytelling as the movie. And, but the director didn't want to honor that as much, basically even told people don't even watch the movie. It was hard to refer to the movie because the movie had successfully told the story in a certain way that, like, sometimes when you know, even when you were on the set, you kind of had to refer to it. It's like, well, this is the way they did it. You just had to talk about it because it was such a, I think the storytelling of the feature was an important thing to refer to because it was kind of the language of the story. So, you know, it was important for me to tell the perspective of Hannah as she, in her two worlds. So her first world being the forest that she lived with her father, and you know that she'd never been out in the outside world, and then a big part of the show would take place outside of that. So I mean, really, see, episode 1 is primarily in the forest. Episode 2 to the end is pretty much she's outside that into a world that she's never been at. So for me, it was like telling that transition was important, and I did that again with that was a Panavision show, but I used the primos for the forest to make it more pristine, I felt, and then I used P vintage lenses for the kind of narrative of the show. So anything like this scene, like this, anything that's that is like any flashback or when they're not in the forest, and then when they're like in the underground, that's all the P vintage lenses, which are, you know, it's like the old glass that is rehoused, and then the forest is the more color matched, pristine primo lenses. And I felt like again, that's organically, that's kind of the emotional place I wanted to put everybody, and the way that Hannah's perspective, because it really is about this young girl's way she sees the world and the way she's going to see the world. So, you know, and then, and also I felt like the expansion of her world was actually bigger when she was in the forest. Like the shots are a little more epic. And then when it gets into this world where she's like being chased and running, and, you know, it kind of, it does get more claustrophobic, you know, that's a little more claustrophobic. So, you know, I think the cave scenes in the first episode are you know, they're all basically these very candlelit looking scenes, and was kind of flickering light, and I, you know, I did these Christmas tree lights, and you know, it's very low light and on the edge, and you know, it just, you know, again, I wanted it to feel like it was really lit by firelight and candlelight, and you know, so it was just kind of taking all these beats that were in the place that Hannah, her feeling, her perspective, you know, and I think that like I feel like that's where I wanted the audience to kind of experience it like that. Like even that shot you just showed, you know, her world is so big at that point, and then and everything's possible, and it literally just narrows down. So I hope that answers that.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Cool. We have a really great question from Lingle. So Lingle is asking, who are some of your creative inspirations? What art, film, TV, music, paintings, performance inspires you and influences your work? Now, we've been spying on you, Dana. I already see the guitar in the background, so I know there's some music going on influentially, but can you please tell us about your other art, film, TV, music, paintings, performances that inspire and influence your work?
I mean, so music is a massive one. When I direct, I play a lot of music on the set. I play a lot of music for the actors. I play a lot of music to get people in the mood. I think I take a lot of beats from music. I think I carry probably every project I do. I'm listening to something, and I'm again and again and again, and it drives me. You know, I definitely attach myself to certain music for every project. You know, I just do, and it just I want to put myself in a place that make me respond. You know, like I I said earlier, I like to wait till the last minute to make a decision on lighting in a lot of ways. And I feel like that the music that's in me at the time is going to help influence that. Far as probably my number one primary artist painter that I refer to is Rembrandt. I think, you know, I like single source lighting, and I think a Rembrandt portrait is everything I think a portrait should be. I think the way that the light's refracting from that single light in the background or whatever is exactly how I see things naturalistically. You know, I spend a lot of time. I like YouTube quite a bit, and I go down the rabbit holes of YouTube. Like, you know, I mean, I literally, like, you know, especially when I'm on the road. I'm on the road all the time. You know, if I'll get a lot of times it starts with music, where I'll either hear someone, a new artist, or even go back to another artist that I've been listening to or haven't listened to in a while, and then I'll go start watching all these things that they've been in, and
like music videos and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I get, and these you know, a lot of these live performances. A lot of them, sometimes they do these one-off things. You know, the Blogatech is like an incredible. I think if anybody has never been, go to Blogatech and watch it. They're kind of like, they have these incredible bands perform in these. You know, could be just like a church or a street in Paris. A lot of things are in Paris, and there's just some inspiration that comes from that, you know, and you know, so I go down that rabbit hole a lot. And I mean, you know, I look at obviously Instagram a lot, and Vimeo. I look at Vimeo and a lot of young artists, young DPs and directors, and people I never heard of that, you know, that blow me away, you know, or people that I really love their work, and then again I go down the rabbit hole of like their work, you know, Steve Annis's work on Vimeo is like amazing. Stuart Weinkauf and guys like that, people like that, you know, it's literally I get to that next person from someone else, right? Like, who are they following, and go look at their work, and that I feel like that keeps me relevant in a lot of ways, and I get to see what other people are doing, and you know, and it just, you know, I in a weird way I feel lesser. Like, I feel like, man, these people are just killing it out there, you know. And I see this stuff that it's just like, you know, at such a great basic level, and beautiful storytelling, and maximizing the equipment they're using, whatever, if it's ACS or 5D at the time or whatever it is, and you know, I'm just blown away. You know, I judged the Academy student shorts the last couple of years, and you know, the work that the people are putting out in film schools today is like unbelievable.
It's
okay, true. And you know, it's just light years ahead of where I was at that age. So like, all those things influence me, and they're constant, and for me, it's like there's a healthy dose of all that every day to get me there.
So, you know, my question is like, for example, when we were looking at, you know, Fargo, which is it's a show that's not started yet, so it's going to start soon, and you get to see like the episodes before anyone else does. The thing is, like, what about like the music, you know, with the end result of when you see the editing and everything done and what the sound sounds like, you know, like, to you, like, is it the stuff that you heard in your head, or, you know, is it something different? Do you get sometimes surprised by it? Are you happy about it? Or are you question it sometimes? Like, what do you go with that track?
Yeah, I mean, Noah Hawley is like, you know, he's a musician himself. And music is a huge part. I mean, he actually sang, I don't know how many songs total in Legion and Fargo.
Really? Like, he
sang 12 of the songs in multiple seasons. Okay.
Wow.
So music is a huge part of his process. And I've been fortunate where I've directed 2 episodes of Legion and I've directed 3 of Fargo season 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 of this season, and every one of those I was able to get the music that I wanted in these episodes, and that's like not every director gets that, just because he's it really needs to work. Noah's so good, and anybody who's a fan here at Fargo is going to tell you that the guy is so good at putting just songs you've never heard, songs that are just on point for the scenes. That's just like it's a huge strength of his. And so for me, like in Legion, I the first episode I directed on Legion, I put Radiohead "True Love Waits" and Jane's Addiction, a Jane's Addiction song, and he took it, he accepted it, and it's in there.
Awesome.
The same in season 4 of Fargo. There's some music that I can't really talk about it yet, but there's some music in there, that a lot of music that I influence scenes with, but I honestly could say that he's always in my head, Noah, and like what would Noah do? What would what is his thoughts? And but I think by definitely being as influenced by music as I am, that it doesn't come that hard. It's not that hard, because I always have something in my head. I think I'm always humming something in my head when I'm lighting these scenes or directing these scenes or whatever. So and I think Noah writes like that too. I think he has some of this music in his head when he's writing, and so yeah, it's super important.
That's really cool that you got to influence not just the music, but I mean, you directed episodes. So really, like, you had an influence on the storyline and character development, things like that. Does that then translate when then you go behind the camera again and, you're now looking at the image and not worrying about the storyline? Now, since you directed an episode, the next episode, maybe you're DPing. How does that change your dynamic on set with the DP or the director that you're working with?
I was very fortunate this season, because I did most of the time I'll do the penultimate episodes or something. So I'm like it's the last thing I do probably on a season. So this season I shot the first 2, and then I directed 5, 6, and 7, 3 episodes, 5 in the middle, 5, 6, 7 or whatever, and then the last episode I did there was another one-off. It's a black and white, all black and white. It's really awesome. It's all black and white.
Oh, cool.
Quite special. And so that was the exciting part about that was like, that was a new challenge, right? So it wasn't like I was just doing episode 8 and it was, I'm kind of stepping into even finishing what I did as a director. No, it was completely a one-off story and a different look altogether. So so that made it kind of seamless that way creatively, and it just kind of works out that way. So I haven't had to. I mean, I'm always like, there's some reshoot or something, so it's not hard for me to go in and out. It really isn't. I feel like my approach is the same. I'm always trying to convince a director to tell a story a certain way, block a scene a certain way. And then
you get to tell yourself. So like, you're like, hey, whatever.
I think the reason I'm directing so much now is because of that very reason, because everybody's seeing like, it's like, you're constantly trying to tell a story anyway. So just do it,
Yeah. That's great.
So, but yeah, I'm still able to go in and out pretty easily.
Wonderful. We have a question. The next question is from Will DeRosa. So let's unmute Will and let's see if we can ask a question. It's about diffusion.
Am I hot?
Yes, you are.
Okay,
We're live.
Hey, so I was curious. You mentioned diffusion when talking about the new Fargo, and what diffusion did you use, and how did you change it for setup based on how it kind of was reacting?
Sorry, you're going in and out. It might be your microphone. Could you repeat the question again?
You can read the question if it sounds terrible.
Is it?
I'll read the question to you in just a second. It's what type of diffusion were you using, and how do you modify per setups? And I think we were watching the Fargo trailer at the time. Is that correct, Will? You can nod your head. Is it about Fargo or Legion? Fargo? Yeah, Fargo. What type of diffusion were you using, and how did you modify per your different setups? Thanks for the question, by the way.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks. Unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you what I'm using. I'm pretty. Listen, even if I told you, you probably wouldn't do it. It's just I urge everybody to test and find that look that they want, because if, like I said before, like that the only way that the diffusion or other filters work in conjunction with the lenses is if they all work kind of together and with the story. So like I don't even come into any project with a my go-to diffusion. I mean, yes, I have diffusions that I use. I'll tell you, I use a satin filter. I'm not gonna tell you what color or what number. I can tell you it's not a fraction. I'll tell you that. So I give you that. That's how much I'll give you. And but I use a lot more than most people think. But again, it has to work with the lenses, and then your question about how do you change it up for like a longer lens or whatever. I tend not to change my diffusion ever until there's a different lens. So like if I'm using normally an assistant will come up to me and say, do you feel like that if we're using I don't use zooms really, but I definitely carry a short zoom and a long zoom. And occasionally we do it, and maybe they'll remind me, like maybe we should back off on the filtration.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm using another vintage lens, then of course I'm going to have to maybe back off because
on that, yeah.
The resolving of certain lenses versus especially a modern lens. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the reason I could be as bold with the diffusion is with the modern lenses and the way they resolve, especially with a large format camera and things like that. So
you have tighter grain structure. You got the more dense pixels. So yeah, definitely different behavior than before.
Like for Hannah, the show Hannah I didn't use any diffusion. I just I wanted to maximize the primos for what they were, and I want to maximize the P vintage lenses for their characteristics. Anything in front of the lenses. So that was like so that again, that wasn't me just saying I always needed to use diffusion. Season 4 of Fargo is and I was trying to build this atmospheric look, in conjunction with smoke. I use a lot of smoke on sets, and so it's like finding the right filtration. This Legion has a fair amount of diffusion, but it's a little different setup, a little different combination with that particular storytelling and how much. So yeah, I mean, I even have colored filters I'm using in season 4 of Fargo. We use a lot of colored filters in Legion, so basically committing to a look using, so I don't just leave it up to the colorist, just because I feel like, you're not always getting the exact look of things with just by dialing them in a color suite. Plus in television, we have X amount of time, and it's not like a feature. So, I really believe in baking in all the looks and the organics. So, I mean, I'll tell you a crazy story. So in Legion season 2, episode 3, we had this Platonomy's memory. And so like, again, that's like a recipe to like, how am I going to make this differently? I stacked the biggest Locon filter, like a Locon 6, I think they made, and a Locon like 4 or something like that together. And even my operator, Mitch Dubin, said, "You sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to do this." Right. So the entire post-production, I got several emails from people. They thought that it was like that I didn't have a LUT on that footage, and they kept saying maybe you don't on there. And I'm like, no, it's fine. I really need to refine it in the final to make it work, because I knew I had to add contrast back and everything like that. Well, that particular look, if I was trying to get the visual effects to do it, they're so busy with so many things. They have like just fixes and things that they need to do story-wise, that getting them to kind of like create this atmospheric look that I think that he needs, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're just not going to do it. So what I do, I figured they made a Locon 6, then it should be used. I think he's on here. George Moradian is a cinematographer that I worked with, taught me that the most, because he was a guy who would shoot 50 ASA film on an interior and then throw a filter on it. He was just fearless
Wow.
when it came to that, and committed. And then like you didn't, you saw, no one was seeing it besides when we saw it in the dailies, and so that stuck with me. So
that's to get like a really fat negative, right? So that you have a lot of room to play with. Is that what he was doing?
He was doing all kinds of things that literally bold commitments, and and they always worked out, and it was really about the work, the atmosphere of it, the texture of it, and in the film days you did have to bake that stuff in. Paul Cameron, we used to use 6 filters on front of our film cameras, like grads and Diffusion and colored grads and stripes, and literally taping them on, because that's what you had to do, because you did, in commercials, because you didn't really have any choices if you wanted to bake in all those looks. Then digital came, and even as telecine got better, they started telling people, oh, cinematographers, don't do that. Just give us the cleanest image and we'll do it later. Well, that gives someone a choice, right? So I don't want to give anybody a choice. So if I'm going to use a Locon 6 and put a Locon 4 on top of it, that's what the world's going to see. So I'm either going to reshoot it, get fired, or the world's going to see it. So I've been fortunate where I've never been fired. So and I haven't had to reshoot anything. For that reasons. And so, so I'm a strong believer in diffusion and color filters and just building atmosphere. So it's about that.
Speaking of George, I think he had to leave, but he said that he was really happy to be here, and you had many adventures together. He says you're one brave, beep, and fearless. And I could probably say I was one of his sponsors for the ASC. Dana is all in. So he had some really nice words to say about you. Let's go with Greg's question, because this is funny, and I want to tee up Greg's question because it's actually about the post process. And now let's maybe dive deeper into that relationship of the cinematographer with the post process, because you hit upon it. So Greg Chaccio, if you can unmute, Stephen will unmute you, and there you go, Greg. How you doing? We can see you.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Hey, Dan.
Thank you, Snehal. And thank you, Dana. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Just checking, I know you've used ACES in the past, and talking about a TV schedule and how crazy that is. How has that helped you either achieve your visual goals or made it easier for you?
Listen, I think, ACES is unbelievable. We successfully did it with Legion season 3 from beginning to end. It was a big process with a lot of meetings at the beginning. You have to get a lot of people on board. There's you have to get the editors on board. You have to get the VFX on board. You have to get the color component on board. The editors, because there's depending on their platform they're doing and their transforms, and there's an extra step. So in post-production, nobody wants an extra step. They want to do what they've been doing successfully for all these years, because it all relates to time. So anytime you talk about a new platform, a new workflow, they're afraid of it, because they're like, you know what? This is what we do. This is how we do it. Well, I've had some issues with previous workflows and specifically with VFX. So ACES to me, the massive strength of it was the VFX component of it, and that the fact that, you know, not everybody outsources, but there's a lot of VFX that get outsourced. So I shoot something and I'm using a K1S1 LUT or whatever, and we send it to India. You know, that guy's got a LUT on somehow. That LUT may be just a Rec 709 LUT that's downloaded from whatever, or maybe some machine he's using, somebody forced them to use a show LUT years ago that's still on the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's doing his CGI, or he's doing his whatever he's doing on this LUT. ACES takes that away, because it's like, everybody is going to be on ACES. I'm going to use ACES when I'm on the set, and use the ACES on the set. The daily trick with ACES, and then we're going to do the final color in ACES. There's a lot of screaming and kicking. People are, because again, even the colorist has gotten to a certain that they do their secret sauce, their node structure, whatever. They've done it a certain way successfully. Maybe that's even their jam. Maybe they have their special LUT node build that they always do that people love. With ACES, that's kind of like all off, right? You have to basically, so the thing about ACES is funny, is that I think you have to be a little more perfect as a cinematographer, maybe, like, because when you open, it's very filmic in that sense, because when the colorist opens the image and he puts the ACES transform on, it's done. It's almost done. Like, it looks exactly like it left me.
Mm-hmm.
So where you know, open up, and then they you know, their log, and they start with their secret sauce or whatever. Boom, now you're into interpretation, and they're doing their certain thing, whatever. So I had colorists say that to me, and I was like, well, it was almost done, and that's scary to them. Listen, I don't think it's going to be done. You still have to nuance and match scene to scene, and color and density, different lenses. I mean, the beautiful thing about it is, like, you could use different cameras and you stick them in this container, and again, you're using the same LUT transform, you know, effectively for all of them. I mean, they don't have a phantom LUT yet, a phantom transform, obviously, but they know it's going online any day. That would be amazing. I'm waiting for that. But effectively, we're all speaking the same language. I think for an effects-driven show, it's incredibly powerful. And I actually did it in season 3. I think at the end of the day, everybody was completely happy. The visual effects houses are always a yes. It's normally the editorial component, the colorist, and the post house in particular that are going to be like, well, we this until they do it successfully. Fargo season 4, I'm doing a very rapid that I couldn't do ACES because it deals with the show LUT. If you deal with show LUTs, ACES is probably not going to work, because you really need to use the ACES LUT to make it work. But I tend, on 99% of the work I do, I build in the color and the tone and the atmosphere in camera. So in that theory, the ACES works for me, because I want it to look like that. You know, so that's me. I want it to look like that. Some people want it, you know, they want the colorist to do a little bit more. Maybe the colorist wants to do a little bit more. that's not always high on my list. You know, my colorist that I use a lot, Tony D'Amore, we work very well together. He just gets it, understands it, wants to compliment the work that I'm doing. We work together and we collaborate together. So, the strange thing about even post is like the editors, they're the last people to touch the footage or whatever. The colorist, the last person. So they always, in a way, think they're fixing things. You're not fixing anything because we're giving you the concept. We're giving you this thing, but that's the thing. They're the last people to touch it. Well, what a beautiful world where the last person to touch something is only able to do what originally my intent. You know what I mean? So
that creative
I think
intent,
ACES,
yeah. That's the important thing, like to be able to translate what you saw in your head to what you see on the screen. I mean, we talked about the music, but this is the most important part of the cinematography is being able to preserve.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know when we went digital, people have naturally thought like, oh, great, we have more control, or the bastard post supervisor that they're not all bastards, but the guy that basically like, you know what, I want this brighter, I want this darker, I want this whatever. Screw that guy. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's why in the film days, we baked it in, and it was like they can only do so much, right? That's how I explode, actually, man. You're not going to be able to lift the stuff I do too much at all.
Right.
So I mean, like, we still own that as cinematographers, and we, so I think ACES is another way to own it, 100%. It's because I think if your exposures aren't great in ACES, and I think that you may be in trouble in a way because it's a wider gamut and wider latitude LUT, right?
Yep.
And it's just like, if it doesn't fit inside there, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that because I feel like I know my craft well enough, so I'm okay with that. And I feel like it's taking back the control that cinematographers and image makers need to have. That's not going to work with everybody, but that's basically, if you're going to work with me, that's what you're going to get.
So we're going to go with the last question before we wrap up, Dana, and it has to do with photography. So Keith Pikus, we're going to let you ask your question to Dana.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just wanted to ask you, and thanks first of all for talking with all of us. It's very nice. Do you do a lot of photography? I see the printer back there. I was curious, does that inform you in a lot of your cinematography, or do you feel like that's a totally separate thing?
It 100% informs me. I'm anybody who's worked with me knows me. I bring around 7 cameras with me on the set. I have multiple Leicas, film and digital, and I bring a 4x5. I bring various Polaroids. I shoot a lot of Polaroids. There's some Polaroids I'm shooting right now. I'm in quarantine. I have like $10,000 or more probably Polaroid film in the refrigerator right now. And then I have tons of photography books. I mean, I'm looking at this Warhol book right here. I have the Style Lighter nudes in my room book, Walker Evans Polaroids, and other books here. So I'm constantly looking at these books. I collect photo books just for that reason. And I shoot a lot of stills, and there's a lot with a lot of failure in mind. I always tell anybody that the minute you could forget about the camera, that's when your work's really going to start. Because like I literally go months without even touching the camera. I mean, I have camera operators but I literally, I'm so confident with the cameras I'm using and the lenses I'm using and the knowledge I have that I'm able to just be thinking about the image making. And that's really how I learned that, was by shooting stills, messing up stills, the happy accidents of stills. And it comes from shooting film, expired Polaroid, because that's pretty much all I shoot now, because that's out there. And even digital, and always pushing the envelope with that, because then literally I'm not thinking about the camera. I'm not thinking about any of the technical parts of the camera. I'm utilizing what the camera can do, and I'm using what the camera can do for storytelling, for shutter speed, or whatever it is. I'm maximizing it. And the still photography is I love still photography. I'm trying to master it in a way. I think it's harder. It's super hard. I mean, one image is unbelievably hard. Luckily I've been very fortunate to exhibit some of my photography. I far from mastered it. I think my dream one day is to really be a great still photographer. I like to capture people. I like candids. The picture that I love the best happens very quickly. It's a fleeting moment, and so getting those fleeting moments, and you can't do it all the time. It just happens and it's gone, and if you're lucky, you catch that firefly. So it informs me a lot, and like I said, I think the more you're in control of, and a still camera is the same as, to me, it's about photography. The more you know about photography, the better you're going to be as a cinematographer, because you don't have to think about it. Now you get to think about the artistry, the technical part, the camera part, what's happening. It's going to happen. Now you're 100% into the artistry, 100% into the emotion, 100% into what you want the audience to see, and how the story is being told. So I think it's imperative that every cinematographer is shooting constantly for personal work, and just again to be more comfortable with the camera and have it just so secondary.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana, and everybody that's joined us and stuck around until the end. It's so wonderful to see everybody. Before we wrap, a couple of things. Dana, first of all, for Fargo Season 4, for Legion Season 3, can you please shout out to the other DPs that you work with, alternating on these shows?
So season 3, I'm trying to think of everybody who was there. Polly Morgan, of course, before she was there before she had to have her baby. Ben Cutchins, Alec Dissenhoff, Eric Messerschmidt, they were involved in that. Legion, or Fargo Season 4, Paula Hudeborough, Pete Conskill, and me.
Great, excellent. And
then
I'm
sorry, Bella Gonzales, my daughter, ended up shooting several days when Pete had to start the other episode. So she shot second unit, and also John Connor. John Connor has been my kind of go-to second unit splinter guy on Legion and Fargo. Amy Vincent did Legion Season 3. She was unbelievably great and did just incredible splinter work, and additional photography, and just killed it. Such a talented person. So it's a village to create all these images, and everybody was on board. So I'm very fortunate to work with so much talent.
Wonderful. And to leave you with it, Fargo Season 4 is going to release. When is it coming out?
It's, I think, September. It was supposed to be April 19th. The COVID thing, we got shut down 3 weeks to go before, when we had to shut down. So we have 8 episodes in the can, and we need to finish the last 2. So,
So the production got shut down in Chicago. A lot of us know about this and what happened. You'll be fine. You'll go back in. You're going to finish. We're so excited to see it with all those big stars. the cool look. It's a very interesting storyline, shot with the Supreme Prime Radiance lenses, as we talked about during the conversation today. So of course, ZEISS is very excited about it, but I think everyone is, and we all want to see great content. So congratulations on all your successes. What was that?
Is that a 21 Radiance?
This is the 21 right here.
I didn't have that. I didn't.
Yeah,
have
you had a
21
25 through 100. I apologize. This came later. So this is the baby. Look at that. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
but yeah, hey, congratulations on everything. Thank you so much for joining us. This was just great to hear about the wide breadth of experiences, and we touched upon a lot of cool things: photography, post-production, creating the look in camera. And I hope that people got a lot of good information from this. And we will be doing more of these, and so stay tuned, and then we'll definitely post them up. But this was great. Dana, if you have any questions for everyone else, now's the time. Let us know if you have anything you want to ask us.
No, I'm just everybody. I'm watching what so many of you are doing, and you're pushing me. Believe me, you're pushing me to become relevant, and I'm blown away by Instagram is like unbelievable. You look at Instagram, you're just like, holy crap, what these people are doing and everybody's doing, and I'm inspired by every you. I'm inspired. Trust me, like to no end. So keep doing what you're doing and keep.
Great. Excellent. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a nice weekend. Enjoy yourselves. And thanks for joining us worldwide. We really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.